In the convict ward, this is episode 11 by the way, there were 20 cells. The first cell was the best cell and number 20 was the worst. And when I got to CJ3, I went to the chaka, this main office inside CJ3, and I met the assistant superintendent and his right hand munchie and all this kind of stuff. They give me chai and some biscuits. Hadn't had biscuits, since I'd been in jail, and I thought, wow, this is nice, At the time I didn't know I was going into the convict ward, but I was enjoying this tea and biscuits, and then after some time the head munchie of the chaka said, come with me. So off we walked and we went into the convict ward, into his cell. And he said, you'll be staying with me and another servitor. I said, okay, fine. So Munchie was inside the inner cell, and this servitor, who also worked at the chaka, was in the outside cell with me. And it was very nice, they put maybe 3 or 4 blankets on the floor. So my fata was not so hard, if you like. And it was very nice. For the first 2 weeks, it was really nice. During that time, I knew a couple of Englishmen that was in the hospital ward. And these 2 guys had managed, I would imagine, through paying, got themselves a cell in the HIV ward, or the HIV wing, if you like. And there was probably, in these 12 cells, I don't know, there might have been 10 or 12 people that had HIV. But if you had money, and you paid the superintendent and whoever else, you could have your own cell. So anyway, these 2 English guys were there. And I knew one of them from the outside. So I used to go around in the morning and just sit down, have a drink with him, and he would have tobacco, chewing tobacco with dried tea leaves that come out of the tea. I would smoke, and now and then he'd get a bit of charas, and we'd smoke this charas. Anyway, one day he got a talashi, which is a search, and he had a lump of charas in his hand, and he said, Steve, stick this in your pocket quick. So before I knew what was happening, I just shoved this into my pocket. As these convicts come in with the AS, trashed the cell, just totally trashed it. And this one convict said something to the AS, and the AS said, empty your pockets. So I had to pull out this lump of charas. It was only, like that. And I was marched off to the chaka. So he gets there, and there's the AS, there's the head sab from the convict ward. Nice guy, I liked him, old guy. And he said, what's this? I said, looks like charas. And the head sab started to smile a bit. And he said, you know that this is an offence in Tihar? And I went, yeah. And the next thing I know, the head sab stood up and he whacked me across the side of my head by a bush. Fucking hell, Anyway, he said, go back to your ward. So the head Saab just sort of like grabbed my arm and was marching me off. And he said, the next time you do this, don't get caught. And he smiled at me. So anyway, we gets into the ward and he said, get your stuff together. I said, okay. So I had a small sports bag that was given to me weeks back. And we started walking up the ward. I said, where are we going? He said, beast cell. I didn't know what that was then, but it was 20 being beasts. So I've gone from the best to the worst cell. Simple as that. Goes in, and there was maybe 8 people in this cell. And because I was the oldest, I was considered an old man, you see, at that age. They let me have the concrete bed. Now, just to explain this, when you walk into the cell, you've got the outer cell, you've got bars at the front with a door that's all bars. Then you go to the outer cell, and then there's a door in the middle that takes you to the inner cell. And on the right-hand side is the concrete bed. It's 20 inches wide, about 15 inches off the floor, and about 6 feet in length. And I was given the bed. So I chucked my blanket on the bed, and that's where I stayed. When lockup come, there was a small portable TV in the corner, like a 12-inch black and white thing, ancient, and it was turned on. And Hindi movies, that's all this channel was playing. Some of these movies like 3 hours long, 4 hours long, some of them. And they're all like musicals, all musicals and dancing and singing and all this. So I thought, fucking hell, I can't take this. I said, can I go to the library? And the servitor said, yeah, he says, you're in the convict ward, you can go out to the ward anytime you want. The other wards, normally if you wanted to get out of your ward to go and visit somebody in another one, you'd usually have to pay the guard, 20 rupees, whatever, smokes if you wanted it. And of course I had no money, I had no tobacco, no nothing like that. So for me, that was the one blessing of being in the convict ward. I could actually get out and move around. And this day, I went to go out to the ward, and we had a new head Saab. And this head Saab, he would sit in a chair, roughly where, say, cell 8 or 9 was, just reading a paper, and that's all this guy ever did. Apart from lock-up, and then at lock-up time him and the servitor would lock us all in, blah, blah, blah. So I was walking out this day, and he stopped me. He says, no. I said, what do you mean, no? I'm a convict. I mean, I wasn't, I was still on under trial, but this guy didn't know no difference. He went, no, go back to your cell. So I started raging like, and he just sat in his chair looking at me, and I was swearing at this guy, calling him everything under the sun, and the next thing the servitor come up, grabbed my arm and just walked me off. He said, Steve, be calm. I said, look, I want to go out. I said, I want to go to the langar, I want to get me bread. The langar is the kitchen, huge kitchen. I mean, how many? There was over 3,000 people in CJ3. So it was a big kitchen that, and all these people had to be fed like. And I said, look, I want to get my bread. And he said, look, just leave it 10 or 15 minutes and I'll speak to the head sab. I said, okay. Anyway, after like half an hour or so, I got up. I thought, oh, I'm just going to walk out and see what this guy says. Like, so I comes out of my cell, walks past the head sab, doesn't even look at me, and I just go out. Anyway, I goes out, walks up round the corner, and right by the side of the convict ward was ward number 2. Now this was the privileged ward at that time, in as much as the majority of people that were in there paid to be in there. Just cells, there was no barracks, and again, I don't know, there might have been 20 cells, I can't remember. And I got to know a couple of foreigners that were in there, and one day this guy came up to me, I'll call him Lando. He went, Steve. So I walked up to the gate, and he thrust a 500 rupee note into my hand. He says, go around to the library. And he said, there'll be a guard outside. He said, and just give him this money. Tell him who it's from. I said, yeah, okay, I can do that. So he gives me this money and goes over to the library. And I'm looking around. Anyway, I see this one guard just stood on the outside of the entrance. And I just go up to him and I just give him this money. I went, Lando. He went, TK, which is like, okay. So I thought, right, let's get into the library while I'm here. The library was massive. It had thousands of books. It was a huge library. They also had what they called the IGNU ward, which it was like an education ward for quite bright people, if you like. And they were doing lots of lessons and this and that. And it was nice ward, which is where the library was housed, of course. And I'm going through these books. I pick up like 3 books and I'm looking, and I see a Bible, just a small Bible like that, thick, King James Bible. So I was having a look round and I just slipped it into my pocket because I was only allowed up to 3 books. So anyway, goes back to my ward with these books, and then I was reading a book in just over a day and a half. For the sole reason was to stop the noise. When you've got like 8 people in there and it's feeding time, you know, after lockup, for example, the noise is unbelievable. They're all chattering, the TV's on, somebody's got a little pocket radio blaring some other stuff. And initially, I couldn't take it. It was like, you know. So the reading took my mind off it to the point where I never heard nothing. So I'm reading away, and then I remember this Bible, so I takes this Bible out, and I thought, I'm going to read this. Now, understand, I'm not religious. I've never even been christened, through circumstances at the time. But I thought, I'm going to give it a go. So I did, and it gave me some calmness. I'll be honest, the first part, the Old Testament, it's mad as bacon. All I saw was this egotistical God that if you didn't obey his commands, he'd kill you. That's how I saw it. But it changed.